In today's drawing session, I want to recreate this drawing that I sold. I want to talk a little bit about why I think this one sold and how to sell portrait art. When I first started my journey as an artist, I knew I was drawn towards portraits, but I wasn't sure how you sell a portrait. I started looking at other artists who was doing this and managing really well and having a great time doing it. That helped confirm to me that there is a market for creating portraits and selling them. I just found it encouraging to know that there certainly is interest around having portrait artwork in your home, and there was a market for it. So when I did this picture, I remember having a comment on Instagram saying, "Man between time and space," I think it was. And I felt that he really captured what I was trying to do, which is to capture something that is just in between here and beyond. I feel like I'm trying to express something that's a little bit spiritual as well. So when this guy put "man between time and space," I really felt that hit the spot. So I ended up naming this drawing Between Time and Place, and I feel like he's almost a spirit or something like that. So when I draw these blur marks that kind of describes movement, I feel like it's almost as if the spirit is spilling a little bit out of the body, if that makes sense. But saying that, this is not the main thing I present to the world when I go out and show my picture. I'm hoping that that element of "this is for your soul" translate without me having to put too many words to it. Well, this drawing did sell, and I don't know if it was the spiritual element that translated or whether it was something else. I've got a couple of theories on what that could be. The first point on my list when it comes to drawing portraits which are not a celebrity, and it's also not a custom portrait of somebody's aunt, uncle, brother, sister. This has to be clearly not someone. So the portrait needs to have a level of anonymity to it, where this could be someone that feels vaguely familiar, but it's not someone you know, and you know it's not supposed to be someone you know. That really opens up for the portrait to be a part of the viewer. You can insert yourself into the feeling or into that moment. I feel like having an element of anonymity can make a portrait open-ended, and it therefore gets a different potency to awaken an emotion in the viewer. And that's the thing that really interests me when it comes to these types of portraits. In the past, I have tried to capture this feeling or this open-endedness, but I haven't succeeded. And I have known that it didn't succeed when someone would have come up to my stand at my show saying, "Who is this person?" Then I know that, okay, that's probably not gonna sell then. On a rare occasion, though, I must say that a certain portrait that I've done will maybe remind a person about themselves, and I have had a few sales like that as well. So these are just guidelines for what seems to work best, and I would say the anonymity is the one that sells slightly better. I feel it takes a lot of skill to achieve this effect, this ability to express that it's a person, but it's not too clear and it evokes an emotion. But that's the thing that I've been going for. Before I hit on this particular type of drawing, I was thinking a lot about how to sell portrait artwork. I didn't start out doing these types of drawing. The first thing I started out doing when I got started on my journey was a more collage-y type of portrait. Here I am not talking about a physical collage, but rather a layering up of ideas. This is another way to add meaning to your portraits, where you don't have to worry about the identity of the person. It can be quite dreamy and otherworldly, but not by the means of making the lines blurry and wispy and unclear. But you can be very literal in your drawing, and that can be an easier way to start out. So that's where I started out. I did these big watercolor portraits with faces collaged and merged over each other. They would have maybe some text on there as well. They had a little bit of an Art Nouveau style feeling about them, a bit more poster-like quality. And I would freely collage ideas onto these as I went along. They were very colorful, and in that way could be quite captivating as well. And maybe that was part of why I did manage to sell a good handful of these. I think this layering of ideas really opened up for the scope of adding meaning to your pictures, and I was playing around with Jung's archetypes and naming these pieces after the different anima archetypes, and there was a whole story around that made it possible to talk about these works in galleries and in art settings. In a sense, that was easier to talk about those than to try to express what I'm trying to capture with this more spiritual approach and this more blurry, expressive style that I'm doing here. I'm still working on my talking about these as I'm working out what they are actually about. In the process of developing this drawing style, I started to do these big collages, which were real collages, and there I would collage the drawing onto colorful splashes of paint and layer up some different printed elements as well. Again, using this concept of being able to build up ideas and thoughts around a portrait, which takes it away from being somebody, but into the realm of being something existential. This summer, I sold one of these types of collages as well. It was a drawing of a woman with butterflies all around her. I had collaged meaning onto her. In this case, I actually collaged elements from a dream I had. It was kind of personal to me and not necessarily something I was gonna tell the world about, but I just put in this sense of deep symbolic meaning and felt that that could maybe add a touch of something a bit special to this painting, that it came from a deep place inside of me. At a certain point with this picture, I started adding in the butterfly wings, and I was purely following my intuition. So that's the third way to work with portraits, following your intuition. And following your intuition is something that's really, I think, the most powerful thing you can do. And I'm very curious about where that can take an artist. So it's something I'm exploring a lot with these drawings. I would say they are an attempt at creating intuitive art. And at times I feel that can really bring in a meaning that you might not even have predicted yourself, but that makes a lot of sense to you in hindsight. But back to the list of what types of portrait artwork you can sell. I've touched on an Art Nouveau style that includes a layering up of ideas. I've touched on a little bit of this intuitive, very loose, very expressive style. And I also would like to add to that list the combination of layering ideas and using this wispy, blurry charcoal drawings as well. I have also successfully sold a couple of drawings where I have layered on ideas in the connection of a charcoal portrait, a bit like this. In those cases, I might have layered on flowers, orchids, a bit of asemic writing, things like that. So that's a bit of a combined approach where you've got the option of putting in ideas based on concepts, on intellect, but it's still got the flow and the expressiveness, and you got the intuitive element there as well. And this is definitely something I'd like to come back to and develop more. One example of portraits like this where I sold them, I did a female face and she had birds in flight layered over her, which brought an element of meaning and an element of interpretation into the mix. I really liked that way of working, and I think I'll definitely return to that as well. And then finally, I've also had some experiences selling portrait artwork that I did connected with my sister. She's a photographer and does this amazing, beautiful movement photography, which exactly captures that vibe that I'm talking about here and that I'm also pursuing with my charcoal. We sold a variety of portraits in this type of blurry photography style, where we added watercolor or we would overlay a drawing and actually using Photoshop. Once again, I find with intentional movement photography that it captures a really lovely sense of anonymity where people can really identify with the subject. It's not too literal, it's so beautifully open-ended, and I thought some of the best works that I've been part of making, we made together. I am so thankful for your time. I really appreciate that you have stuck around for this time to listen to me and listen to my thoughts. I've got so many ideas for videos and so many more drawing sessions I want to share with you. Before you go, I'm offering you the chance to win one of my original artworks. You can sign up for the chance to win using this QR code here at the end, or you can follow the link in the description below. I can encourage you that my last videos haven't had that many views, so you have a very high chance of winning, and I hope you will, to whoever's listening right now. Sending you lots of love, and I'm so happy that you're here listening to what I have to say. Thank you so much, take care, and goodbye.